Okay, so welcome to Sports Talk. This is our first one that we've done at the Mojave Fitness Center, and it's really challenging because it's during COVID and it's getting a little bit colder out. A lot of sports have kind of ended in the last month or two, so we're kind of at like the tail end of a lot of those. But um, there's still a lot of sports that have tried to kind of get going and stuff like that. Again, it's really tough because of COVID, but even if it's not necessarily what's going on in the professional world right now, we can just talk about like training that goes into it, maybe on like the more recreational level, sports that we've done, sports that we've been interested in and just don't know about, and just asking questions and stuff like that. So it's very open, topic wise. It's just anything sports related, even if it's not necessarily professional sports, or if we got into like fantasy teams and went into like details like that, that would be cool too. So like I said, this is the first one we've done. We might do more depending on how COVID goes in sports and how people like it and that kind of thing. But anyway, so I wanted to, people might just come in as we get going here, but for now, I wanted to get it opened up with just asking the favorite sports of everyone who's in here right now. So I'll start. My favorite mainstream sport, as you might be able to tell with my attire, is hockey. Even though this last year was really weird, they didn't have a season at all. They had to cancel the tail end of last season because of COVID, and then they did kind of like a round robin thing in the summertime for the playoffs. And then there hasn't been any talk of it since. Although normally we'd be right smack in the middle of hockey season. And my team, the Devils, this year being 2020, have been doing really terribly. So I don't have any problem kind of hiding a little bit. Yeah, so that's my favorite mainstream sport. As far as non-mainstream sports, one that I enjoy more is mountain biking, and people don't know very much about it, so I don't bring it up as much because then the conversation's always the same. It's just me kind of explaining how that sport works on a competitive level and stuff like that. But we can get into that more if we want to. But those are mine favorite sports. Um, and I have others that I enjoy, like football and stuff like that, as you can see. But yeah, so that's me. I was gonna ask, what are the other favorite sports among people right now? So go ahead.
Well, for me, it's jujitsu. Uh, that's about it. I'm not really a sport person.
Gotcha, that's cool. Jiu-jitsu is like a sport that I think a lot of people have heard of, but really don't know the details of. So I feel like
Right.
that's almost like mountain biking in a way. But I think maybe even more people have heard of jiu-jitsu. I was talking to somebody over the weekend at my unit with the Army who was really into jiu-jitsu, and he was talking about how he follows it professionally, and I don't even know where you would go to try to do that. Do you follow any like professional jiu-jitsu athletes or anything like that?
Oh yeah. They have the competition, the tournament. So like the IBJJF or a different kind, the different types. So they host big tournaments, throughout a year. So you
Oh,
just
cool.
follow them, and then there are some athletes like usually are pretty um, popular, I guess, because either they are black belts or they just it's more well known. We just follow them and then see their techniques, and when they compete, it's usually just like watching a UFC fight, right?
Okay. Do
Yeah. So
you are you able to see that on like ESPN or any kind of mainstream channel like that?
um, I think you had to sign up for it. I think that sometimes they would do like a match or um, some kind of match that you can watch. So it's very similar to UFC. Like they will tell you when they're gonna, how many people, how many matches gonna be. So I
Gotcha.
watched it a few times in the past. Yeah, so I guess that's it. You just have to sign up some kind of
Yeah.
channel, and then
It
you can
it
watch
sounds
the
like
whole
it's
fight.
like a boxing fight card kind of thing where like,
Yeah,
sometimes you'll get like a pay-per-view. I don't know if jiu-jitsu does that, but it sounds like normally you'd have to have some kind of subscription, but they'll have like a card
right.
of like the top contender or whatever, is it like that?
Yeah, similar. Like
Okay.
they call some kind of flow. Like the channel you had to watch, and you had to pay, yeah, for pay per view. And um yeah, I never sign up. I just got together with friends sometimes when we will watch together.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people do is they don't watch it in the moment. They'll watch the replay because a week later it's going to be on YouTube usually, right?
Right, you can always
Or
see that.
somewhere else online, you know,
Right.
especially if it was like a big one, an exciting one or something like that.
Well, the replay is usually like the best part, right? You watch the I guess the highlights of the fight.
Yeah. So how long are those? So like UFC is usually 3 5-minute rounds, sometimes 5 5-minute rounds. Boxing is varied, like they get as high as like 12 rounds or something like that. I guess how
Well,
are the matches in jiu-jitsu on the professional level? Is it always like a certain
I
number of like
think
timed
it's
rounds?
I would say 10 minutes for black belt. So I guess the higher the belt, the minutes longer. So like
Yeah.
at least eight minutes. But I think black belt probably 10 minutes. And
Is
then
it just
there's like gi and no gi competition as well. So they're different and the different rules, certain things you can't do with different levels.
yeah.
Um, so like the lower the level, I think the shorten the time is for each match. And you just do it for one match unless you tie, then it depends on what kind of match. Is a submission only, or you go by points, how many points you get and you win. The more
Okay,
points you
gotcha.
get.
See, I didn't know any of that. But it's usually just like one round. It's not like multiple rounds or anything.
No, just one round. And then
Okay,
yeah. So if you never tab, but you lose by points. That happens. So they're just
gotcha.
different point systems in jiu-jitsu. So
Gotcha. No, that's good to know. Yeah, I didn't know any of that. I think as far as like professionals go, the only name that I recognize is Hoist Gracie, which I think is almost like the Michael Jordan of that sport, as I understand it,
yeah.
where or like the Babe Ruth of that sport, where I don't know if maybe necessarily he is the best of all time or not, but he's certainly probably the most popular and kind of the one who put it on the map. But other than that, I would have no. I mean, I'm sure he's not competing anymore because I think he was like in the 90s or something. But that's the only name that I know. So I don't know if there's been other people who are better than him or what.
It's just a few other people there that into jiu-jitsu, and there are different schools actually developed after that, after those people. So Gracie Barhart, is a really good, a very big school. And then you got different schools, academies set up. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Do you have a favorite professional in jiu-jitsu right now that you always kind of root for or whatnot?
Um, I've been watching some of the female, actually some of the black belt females. They're pretty well known, and their style is pretty. I don't watch them fight all the time, but just watch the highlights of some of the competition they did, and it was just kind of nice.
What are some
Um,
of the names that you know of
oh
in
my
that sport?
God, I don't know. They're usually from Brazil, so
Yeah.
uh, like I just came back from this retreat in Las Vegas. She is the first black belt jiu-jitsu female in Australia, and Sophia McDermott is her name.
Okay.
So she's pretty good. I guess like I didn't know about her until up until I joined the retreat.
Yeah.
But she's really good. I guess everybody is specialized in different things. So for her, she's about my height, maybe a little bit taller than me, but I think we weigh about the same. So we'll be in the same weight class. So I like about it is smaller woman. I don't like, because when you train with them, they same like similar size, similar weight. We usually have a similar techniques. So that those are the ones that I really I watch them when they fight, because it probably makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
How
So
they escape and how they move. So
gotcha. So I mean, jiu-jitsu is a lot of like it's similar to wrestling, but it has more to it, as I understand it. But I think anytime you talk about like a martial art, there's almost always weight classes, whether it's like something strictly striking like boxing or like wrestling, which is zero strikes or submissions or anything. But so that was one thing that I wasn't sure about with jujitsu in particular is the weight classes. Are they are there a lot of weight classes, or does it depend, or is it just like only a couple of them?
I think there are at least five different weight classes for women, at least. But it really depends on who signed up for the tournament. Sometimes, like in the same weight class, there's only like nobody signed up for. Then the only person that signed up for the weight class will have to move up or move down age group as well. So there's
Okay,
age and then there's weight class.
gotcha.
So if you go to one of those bigger tournament, then it's probably easier. You'll find somebody in your weight class and your age group that you can compete with. Otherwise, it's really hard. They have to combine, different classes, and that's just
Yeah,
not fair. I just think doesn't matter. Regardless, weight is an advantage for
absolutely.
heavier persons. Yeah.
Yeah, especially for a sport like that, like in something that's like boxing where it's like strictly just striking with your hands, like,
Mhm.
if you weigh more, you can put a more powerful strike out there, but if you're smaller, you can have, you can dodge faster, you have more
Yeah, you
speed
move
advantage.
faster.
So there's a little
Yeah.
bit of like pro and con to it, but something like jujitsu for sure, it's a lot of body leverage. I mean, that's why wrestling will have weight classes that are 5 pounds apart from each other. So they'll have
Right.
tons of weight classes.
That probably makes a big difference, huh, for wrestling, the
Yeah,
weight
and I
class.
mean they don't have gi, so it's a little different in the sense of like how you're doing it. So like just something like someone's wrist diameter and trying to grab hold of that like is a big factor, and obviously you're sweating and
Oh
stuff like
yeah.
that. So grip is a huge thing in that kind of sport. But one thing, so along the lines of like weight classes, I guess what would be like the largest um person or I guess weight class that you've seen compete? Because I know in high school wrestling it would go as high as like 275, and in college it
Oh,
would go larger. And I don't
I
know.
think for jujitsu it goes up. Yeah. I mean, they will probably take whatever whatever way they can restrict you because of your weight.
Yeah.
But then I think what happened is if you win your weight class, you get to compete as in the open competition. So in the open competition, it's like the ones that win in their division and their weight class. So you can have a lot of really good people, but they are just different sizes, right? So in the open competition is the weight is open, so it doesn't matter. They don't restrict that. So you see two of like maybe number one in their weight class, they will compete doing open tournament. So that's kind of interesting to watch as well, because
So
you see like smaller against the bigger size person.
so if I'm like a 375-pound like former college lineman, like white belt or something like that, like I can compete in this open against like I don't know. I guess can you compete against a higher belt? Number one, but then number two, if I was that
No,
heavy,
it's
would I
you.
compete against a 100-pound person?
No, yeah, it's always within your belt range,
Okay,
belt color. So white belt is only against white belt.
okay,
But then weight class goes up. You could end up against somebody in the open tournament that just any weight.
man, that does
So
not sound
that's
fun for a small person.
right. But I think there are videos out there that shows actually small person can win in things like that. So
That's
they
awesome.
actually have some footage of someone who's really small, then they won the competition against someone who's really big.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome. That's crazy. I can't imagine. I
I
mean, I'm
know
not that
it's
big for a guy. I'm not that big. I'm like 145, 150. It'd be very easy to have like a 250-pound person who's like 6 feet tall or something like going against me.
right.
And I
Right.
don't know jujitsu that well, but I did wrestle in high school, and I know like I was like 130, and if there was like a super tall, like 6 foot 130-pounder, like who like was just like skin and bone, like the limbs are
Uh-huh.
so long they can get in so many areas, and then once they're in on you, like it's very tough to get out of them.
Yeah,
So just the length advantage of limbs is like such a
yeah, I think
troubling
so.
thing. Yeah, that's all. So
But
how
I
long
think
have
you
you been?
learn you learn differently with someone who's like that constantly. Like for me personally, is I'm always training with people who are like guys heavier than me, probably 100 pounds heavier than me,
Nice.
and they could be bigger. I'm petite, so I get used to that, like how to get out of it. I try to learn how to block them, how to get out of it. So it's different, different for me. But I I think that's also bad for me because I'm always stuck in the position where I have to like try to get out, try to like, get away in a situation, but I'm not really good with now I'm at the, I'm more on the top. What do I do? Right. So
Yeah,
like when I get a chance, like if I roll with some other girl my size and then I end up at the top and I feel like, oh, okay, so what do I do next? Because I'm so
yeah.
used to being
You're
at the
always on
bottom, I try
defense.
to push away. Yes. So very rarely I get to roll with somebody my size, and especially a
Yeah.
girl, and it's usually like, okay, now I need to learn what to do to
Yeah, you
attack.
stumbled onto a broader concept with like all sports, which we used to do in wrestling. Same idea with like weight. In wrestling, I mean, in high school it was only like varsity JV, right? So we didn't have like belts or anything, so it's a little different. But there's always the concept of like training where it's harder than what your competition would actually be. So that concept, if you're always used to somebody larger than you in jujitsu, and now you go into a tournament where there's like a weight class, you're going to have an advantage because you're used to, a heavier resistance or it being tougher.
Right.
Like if you're trying to become a great quarterback in the NFL and you're always throwing or practicing like when it's super windy out, and now you go into like a Superdome, it's going to be so much easier for you because it's all like there's no wind to worry about. Same thing with like golf if it's windy or whatever. So that's what in the Olympics they always try to like train at higher altitude. So if they go somewhere like LA, it's going to be a little bit easier for them. So that's a broader concept that everybody uses in sport is just try to train in a way where there's an extra variable that's harder, and then that way, if you get lucky enough in the competition to take that away, you're going to be better prepared for it.
Yeah. True.
So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think so. But then, I guess it would be good to have both ways. You still need to try to learn both ways.
Yeah, yeah. That's another factor too, is like you train so hard to be on. That's like, any kind of sport team, they always say like the best offense is a good defense. But if you train so much good defense, you still have to score points or goals
Yeah,
or
you still
whatever
have to,
somehow.
right. And then you're like, okay, I'm not familiar with this. What do I do?
Right. So yeah, if you're a football team, I use football just because that's what's going on in the world right now, and it's a Monday, so football was on yesterday. But yeah, if your defense is always getting the ball back, and now your offense is on the team, and then they're looking at each other like, oh, what should we do with it? It defeats the purpose almost. So it's you always have to try to balance it. Um, but yeah, no, that's a good point too. So how long have you been doing jujitsu?
About 4.5 years now. Almost, almost 5 years.
Nice. One thing that I know about jujitsu, which I learned not too long ago, was that compared to other martial arts, I don't know very much about a lot of martial arts. I know that jujitsu, there's only 5 belts, which is I think is less than most. Like when I was growing up, it was always like karate, taekwondo, like those are the only ones. And
Oh, yeah.
there was like 10, 12, or 15 belts, and people were moving up like no, like no problem. But number one,
Yeah,
there's
I think
less
it's
belts.
less color from all
So
the other
yeah,
martial.
so there's less like levels to move up to, but it also sounds like it takes a long time to move up, and that's one thing that was very foreign to me, because it sounded like you
You
could
need
do
that
it for like 4
motivation.
years and be in the same belt.
Yeah,
So
it is. It's a different mindset. I think you just have to get used to it. A lot of people, I think a lot of people thrive from like being promoted, like like, oh, you got a stripe, oh, you got a promotion. So people, I think kids especially, they like that, like a little bit of encouragement all the time.
yeah,
But if it takes you more than a year or 2 years to get to the next level, a lot of people just kind of give up halfway.
well, so that's
So
yeah. I mean, that's obviously unfortunate that they're gonna give up like that. But one thing I wanted to ask on that concept was, if it takes so long, I guess like why does it take so long? What's the correct? What allows you to finally move up? Like, is there a criteria you have to do? Like, I guess, what is it that it takes to get to that next belt if that's really what you're trying to do?
I think they know which belt level you are by looking at how you roll with other people, and then the people who give you promotion, especially higher belt like brown belt and black belt, they can tell by the way you roll with other people, like if you know any of the techniques. Um, if you can name them, and if you see somebody doing that, you know how to defend that. You know, just it's very, to me, when I was a white belt, I didn't understand. I was like, how do you determine somebody is ready, you know, to get
Yeah.
promoted? But now I see why, because they know once they roll with you, they know if you're a white belt or you're a blue belt. You know, they can tell, like just by the movement and your understanding of jiu-jitsu and techniques.
So,
Um, so it's really different from school to school. Some school give out belt by attendance.
oh,
So if you attend the class, they probably mark you attend the class, and then they have a system. They will see how often you train, and some school give out bill by that. Um, and in some schools, they does that by looking at how good you are. So somebody could just be training for 1 year, but if that person trains every single day, maybe twice a day or 3 times a day, within 1 year, that person could move from white belt to blue belt. It happened. I've seen that. Um, but I think that's why a lot of people are not happy, because some people might be like, well, I go to class all the time, but you know, by attendance, right? By attendance, maybe that person goes all the time, every single time, and then he or she didn't get promoted because he or she was just not so good, you know, doesn't get that
mhm.
techniques. So it's really up to the school that you train at.
Okay.
How
Well,
they,
so
yeah.
I've never done jujitsu, but like I said, I've done wrestling. Let's say I have a friend who was, I don't know, like a brown belt or something, like really high up in jujitsu, and he had like mats in his garage, and so we would just do like this informal kind of thing all the time in his garage, and I never really did it at a gym or anything like that. He just taught me like a whole bunch of different things, and so
Uh-huh.
I was really good at jujitsu. But then I started an official gym, and obviously I'm just starting, so I'm guessing I'm going to be a white belt right off the bat, but I'm super good and I'm like really, really like skillful and all that kind of stuff. Like would I still have to stay a white belt for a long time? Or if I came in and I looked like I
Mhm.
had the skills of like one of these higher belts,
Yeah, I
kind
think
of bump
if
me
you
up
come
real quick?
in, yeah, yeah, I think you will move up very quickly in the school that goes by your skills than attendance. So it's really up to the school.
Okay.
You probably want to do a little research on the school before you sign up,
Yeah.
because you know you want to know how they promote people, and how, you know, you want to just kind of get a feel of it, because there's just so many gyms out right now out there.
Yeah.
I would say shop around. You know, if you
Yeah.
have really so many gyms in Bakersfield or Lancaster, they can, you know, they're all different. You
Yeah.
want to try it out and just kind of have a sense like how they promote people, and the environment is very important, and who are the coaches, and that's what I learned. When I started, I had no choice. I didn't know anything about this. I just went, and
Right.
happened to be that only one place in Tehachapi. So I learned it, and then I know I see a lot of people come and go, and it just, you know, it really depends on what you want with that. Because for me, I just want to train. I don't care what color bill I am. You know,
Nice.
yeah, you matter, but it doesn't really matter to me. I just want to be good at something, right?
Yeah, right.
So I don't really care when people get promoted, like, you know, around me, and I'm not, and I don't really think too much about it. Just keep
Yeah.
training,
Well, so
because
what if on the other side of the spectrum, so that's somebody who came in who's just like super, super good, but never officially done it at a gym before. What if there was somebody who came in, was brand new? Obviously, they're going to be a white belt. They're going to be a white belt for a while, but they are always coming to every single class, training like crazy. For some reason, it doesn't quite click in their head. Like they're just not getting the skills that some other people get as fast, but they're very proactive because they're always coming. They're getting more people to come, and let's say they're doing tournaments. Maybe they're not doing that great at tournaments. They're doing okay, but they're always doing a lot of tournaments. And they're doing all these other little things. Um, would that make a difference in their promotion, or would it be just
yeah,
they
I
don't have the
think
skills, they're
so.
not going?
I think so. I think they look at how much commitment you put in, you know, in training. If you come all the time to class, you never skip a class, you're always consistent, you know, you're always there. that's major. That's major. Like they look for that as well. And then also if you go compete, even though you didn't win, but you compete, you go out like once or twice a year. Yeah, they look for that too. But you usually get promoted quickly.
Awesome. So it sounds like there's a lot of it's subjective to the higher
Yeah.
belts of the gym. But
Mhm.
now, anytime you have a sport where there's that kind of subjectivity, it just opens that door for athletes to get frustrated one way or
Uh-huh.
another. And in jiu-jitsu, do you ever see that a lot where athletes are getting frustrated because there's so much subjectivity from whether or not they're going to move
Oh
up?
yeah, they get
Really?
frustrated. That's why a lot of people quit all the time. They
Oh,
just,
okay.
they feel like, okay, how come I don't get promoted? I'm supposed to be. I've been here so much longer than the other person,
Yeah.
or I started much longer, before this person. But why did that person get promoted and I didn't, right? But maybe there are other factors, like maybe you are not as committed as the other person. Maybe you come like once a month, the other person come maybe three times a month. That's a big deal.
Gotcha.
um yeah, so a lot of people, they get frustrated easily. And so that's why I say I think jiu-jitsu, if you have too much ego, this is not the right sport for you.
Gotcha.
It
That's
wouldn't
that's an
work for the
interesting
person.
that's interesting because a lot of athletes have that mentality of they strive for such levels of success that once they put in that kind of effort and they're so consistent, it's a kind of a, I don't want to say this term, but I guess like a breeding ground for a little bit more ego. I mean, you look at any kind of professional athlete, they need to go in with almost like an extra level of confidence to try to just for that mental level. So yeah, I mean any kind of like
Yeah.
athlete who's really striving for success like can always have like a big ego to it. But I wanted to ask a more important question because there's a commercial side to this. A D1 college athlete is getting a scholarship and stuff like that for like football or something, so it's a little different. But you're talking about like a gym that is trying to sell memberships, so it's a little different. So now if I'm the owner of a jiu-jitsu gym, and a lot of people get frustrated and they'll leave when they're not getting promoted, could I become, or have you seen it where someone's corrupt and they tell maybe a little bit and they tell some of their higher belts, hey, be a little more lenient with promotions, give people more promotions so that word spreads and I get all these
Oh
customers? Like, do
yeah.
you see that?
Yeah, I see that.
Really?
Actually, a lot of people left our gym to go to the other gym because of that too.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, so you just had to follow, I guess, wherever your school follows, like the policy. You want to stick. Okay, you can become somebody who is really good, but with lower. If you're still blue belt, but you were really really good, you're still like you're supposed to be a purple belt when you are at the other school, right? But at your school, they haven't give you a purple belt, but you're so good as a blue belt. You rather
Yeah.
be that, or you rather be with somebody who is purple belt but you suck, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. But
Right. So it's another way of thinking of it. I didn't feel that until I got promoted recently to purple belt, because this black belt keep telling me, he's told me that you rather be good at your current belt than being really bad at a higher belt, because once one day if somebody challenge you, or that person, you go challenge that person, then you win the fight, and then you are lower belt than that person, right? Then how does that make him or her feel?
yeah,
um so, and then the person keep telling me, the black belt keep telling me, that's just a color, the belt is just a color on you. You really just don't think too hard about it, just focus in training and just be good, be good at what you do. I think
yeah,
ultimately that's the goal. Is if you decided you want to learn jiu-jitsu, you want to take classes and just focus on training and just be good at it. Belt is just a color. That's what
yeah,
that's what the black belt told me. Like, he's been training I don't know how long, 12,
right.
15 years.
More than we
So
have, right?
right. So like I didn't really get it, but until now I feel like, wow, like the promotion, yes, it actually encourage somebody if you get promoted, right? But it also also adds another stress to you, because you feel like, wow, okay, now I have to work harder because I'm at this level. And a lot of people are gonna be want to fight me now because they think that, oh, you're purple. You know, if a lot of white belt or blue belt people, they will actually want to roll with me now because they know that I'm at purple level. They
Yeah.
want to see if they're good, you know. So
Yeah.
it's normal to happen. So that's why it's like you just have to get ready. You just have to be good. I
Yeah.
think
That's
don't think too much about, yeah, don't think too much about the level or whatever. I mean, there's a way to get to it, but you just still keep training.
Yeah, that's when that black belt mentioned that to you, that's an interesting concept. We're getting a little low on time here, but I just wanted to bring it up because, like I said, my favorite sport is mountain biking, which we haven't gotten into yet, but it's okay. But I know that it's the opposite in mountain biking, where there's different classes of categories. So, I kind of do it on the recreational level. I don't compete against like paid professionals or anything like that. I would just be dead last every time. And then there's like the brand new person who's never done a race before, and they're in like the super beginner novice level. And there's, depending on the organization that's doing it, there's different levels in between. But it's actually like very frowned upon for you to be good at, a lower level. So it's a weird different mentality. Whereas you were saying the black belt was like be at your lower belt and be good before worrying about moving forward. Whereas in mountain biking, it's the opposite.
They
You don't
promote
get
you.
individually you don't get individually challenged because it's like racing, but it is an
Uh-huh.
individual sport where it's not like a team thing. But it's considered like a sandbagger where you're like, if I went to that beginner level and I was getting like first or second place every time, I would be
Uh-huh.
hated by the community and people and stuff like that because I'm not trying to push to a higher level. You should be, trying to go up a notch rather than stay where you are or go down. So if you're ever on the border, you move forward and stuff like that. So that's what,
Yeah.
in that kind of sport and career, like that's the way that the unspoken preference or whatever, if you will, is to like try to like push yourself to a further category rather than and then be worse at it, but
Uh,
challenge yourself extra rather than the other way around. So it's just interesting to see the different philosophies and stuff like that. So I
yeah,
really
I guess
appreciated that.
because maybe for mountain biking, it could be somebody, you know, maybe you started when you were young, so you have the skills for it, right? I don't know. It's like it's something that in maybe a personality wise, you're more like challenging yourself. You want to do more of the, you know, more advanced move or something. So maybe that works for you. I just think that that might be a reason that they want to just like, well, you're good, okay, move on. You shouldn't be.
Yeah, I
You
mean
should be
it's
in the
different.
beginner.
Like it's based off of it's kind of like in a job you apply for a higher position. So the organization that's running it that has classes 1, 2, and 3. If you want to move up to the next class, you kind of like you have to submit for it in a certain way, and every organization's different. A lot of times they'll do what's called a race resume, which is basically shows the races that you've done, how important they were, if it was just some local, mountain that did like a little fun thing, or if it was like the national, championship race or something like that, and you took 10th in national championships, but you win at your local mountain. Like those are two different things. But it's an
Uh-huh.
organization that you kind of apply for rather than subjective to one person who's running something. So, and like you said, it varies gym to gym. In mountain biking, it's more of like an unspoken community rule type of thing that you want to try to go further before, maybe even before you're ready, rather than the other way around and stuff like that. But it's not just because it's encouraged doesn't mean you'll get it. So like I've had that before where I was in the bottom category and I was doing really well, and everybody was getting on me about it. But I told them I applied for the next one several times and I got denied because it was like 5 years since I had done a race. So my race resume showed nothing. So they were like, "Oh, you're brand new," but I'm like, "Well, I'm not. I've done this for like a while. I just haven't done it in a while." If that makes sense. And so I had a lot of skills and stuff like that, but they just wouldn't let me move forward. Um, and then I was getting like crap from like other people and stuff like that. But it's just, it's a little, I don't know, just different how different sports and organizations have
Yeah.
like their different cultures and mentalities and stuff like that, which I think is really interesting, seeing a
Yeah, that's
different way of
interesting.
thinking. Yeah. So we're gonna wrap it up here. I think we learned a lot. We kind of kept it to like martial arts and jujitsu, which is cool because it's for me as a sport kind of person, like that's very different. So I loved learning it. And I think what we'll do is maybe see in the future either talk more about this or kind of branch into other sports or stuff like that. or maybe even talk about the training that goes into it. We didn't even touch upon that, the amount of training, because you have so many different muscles that you pretty much use every muscle at like a high level, but then also you need the endurance of it. So training for that alone is hard, but then you have someone wrenching on all your joints. So joint stability, injury prevention, there's so much to such a
Uh-huh.
sport like that that
Yeah.
it's got to be a whirlwind to try to train for. It's certainly more difficult than a running back in football, which their job is relatively so much simpler.
Yeah.
So, but yes, but it was a great session. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I certainly did. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, we
and
should do
hopefully
this
we'll
more
have.
often.
Sorry,
We should do this more often, the sports talk.
I was just gonna say, hopefully we'll have some more of these. We're gonna, kind
We
of get
need
the
more
word out.
coffee.
More coffee, I know, right? We all need more coffee. Um, but yeah, no, hopefully we'll get the word out and be able to do some more of these in the future and get some more people on board. But
Yeah. I try
yeah,
to send the invite to other people, but I don't know. It just probably people don't have, this is not a good time for them or something. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, we're coming into the holiday season. Like I said, it's past a lot of the popular sports and stuff like that. So I think now that they're like, there's
Yeah.
only a couple,
Well,
and then number one, there's not too many sports going on at all because of COVID. But the ones that were going on because of COVID, a lot of them have ended their seasons. So I think people are kind of like forgetting about them or kind of moving on to other things. And anytime the holiday season's around, people's minds are going like 100 different directions. So
yeah.
it's just it is what it is, I guess. But hopefully, COVID will die down. Hopefully, and some of these other sports that weren't going on will kind of pick back up, and then we'll be
You
able
got
to
froze
restore.
again.
What's
Okay.
that?
Okay. Yeah. So you
Uh,
got frozen again.
oh, sorry. I was saying like hopefully COVID
That's all right.
will hopefully COVID will die down, and these other sports that
Yeah.
weren't able to go on will pick back up. So we'll see how things go.
Yeah. Hope so.
Hopefully, that's all we can hope
All
for, right?
right.
But
Yep.
thank you again. I hope you enjoyed, and then
Thank you.
to see you next time.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye. Have a good
Bye.
day.
You too.